Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Tracklist podcast show. I'm Darren Jenkins,
I'm Chris Saunders.
and on today's episode, we are talking about this is relatively new for us. This is like brand spanking new, like they just made it for us. 2025 music documentary, Becoming Led Zeppelin, which explores the origins of this iconic group and their meteoric rise in just 1 year against all odds. Directed by Bernard McMahon and starring, of course, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham. This film had a production cost of, wow, this is actually a lot of money, $70 million. And so far, based like as of May 22nd, it was around 13.2 million, but I don't think it accounts for the Netflix streaming, which is where we watch this from. So
Yeah, I mean, it's been so hard lately, I guess, since the pandemic to judge the success of these films just because they don't go into theaters at all or for that long. So I don't even know if his number's
yeah,
going to get any much higher than it released in February. So it's had 4 months to, yeah, so I don't know.
to
Now it's on Netflix.
aggregate,
That's how we watched it. That being
yeah,
said, IMDb gives it 7.3 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes critics 83%, audience 95%. So
of
so
course,
far, it's still a bit early, right?
yeah,
Like, well, it's 4 months is better than like when it's a release day and that's like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, that's all paid for. But so I was put onto Led Zeppelin by my old boss at Adform. This is like
really.
around the time I met you, so like mid 2000s, and he burned like 7 albums onto CDs for me,
They're like,
which I
what does
like.
burning mean? What does that mean?
Kids, burning means you copy music or add music to a CD. Let me go back. Let me go back. A CD is like a little record. Let me start over again. A record. No, I'm sorry. Look, just Google it. You'll figure it out. Yeah. So he burned these CDs for me, and I went through all of them, and I can't remember more than half the music that was on those CDs, but I have my
Yeah,
favorites, and I mean they're obviously legendary.
yeah, yeah. They're, I mean, the Yardbirds, who Led Zeppelin were prior to changing their name to Led Zeppelin, were kind of, if you think about it, the beginning stages of the super rock band era. I mean, essentially, they kind of gave birth to it without actually meaning to. Um, I came across the music in college. Like, I mean, that's what happens when you go to school. Like, a lot of Caucasian people, you get to experience their music, which is fine. I mean, I discovered a lot of Billy Joel, Hart, Phil Collins, a whole bunch of while I was in school. Led Zeppelin, because my roommate was into rock music. He would play Guns N' Roses, Led Zeppelin, The Doors. So it expanded my breath, and it's not a bad thing.
I mean, yeah, yeah, I was in college a little later than you, and for me it was like oddly enough, Gypsy Kings was huge for like, and I went to like 93%
Oh,
Caucasian school.
Gypsy Kings.
Gypsy Kings were huge. I didn't like them then because all the white folks were listening to it, but I like them now. But Dave Matthews was like
Oh,
what all the white folks were listening to when I was in
yeah.
college. Not very similar
Yeah,
to
he
Led
had them
Zeppelin.
hypnotized, man. He
Seriously.
had them hypnotized. I mean,
Um,
it's so much that he's like a joke on like every other comedy show that like Dave Matthews com- comedy. They should have a whole genre around just Dave Matthews.
I
To
mean,
be honest, I don't know any of his music really. So
uh, there's
not that I know on.
my first, or not my first, my second bassist, Ben. liked him, and my wife likes him, but I feel like she only
Look,
listens to like
I'm
two
not gonna say
songs.
that.
Like Crash. Crash is the big one, right? I think.
Oh, yeah. Is that one of his? Okay.
Anyway,
I yeah.
I don't want to get
Yeah.
into Dave Matthews too much.
Yeah. Please don't.
But it was interesting how they led this film off, this documentary off, like on the backdrop of World War II ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that
Yeah.
sets some
Yeah.
context. They don't really talk about it that much, though. They're not like, oh, like, I mean, I guess they talk about how, like, these guys in the band grew up. There were still, like, food stamps and rationing of food. Like, you know, the UK was still kind of recovering from being bombed. So I guess they talk
Yep.
about that, like, to set the stage, but I don't really feel how it comes into their music, I guess.
The only thing that I was kind of I think the one thing that stuck out is how they were saying like there was like an air of positivity in the world because the world like the war had ended and things were rebuilding. That's the first time I've ever heard someone even kind of paint that era in that way, which is interesting, I guess, from a kid standpoint. It's everything is at that moment a possibility because the war is over and you can hopefully only go up. So yeah, it was interesting way they started it off.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I don't see what it has to do with their music. It's just kind of setting the stage of what they grew up in. Like, but yeah,
Yeah,
there's always that the famous picture of the sailor kissing the woman in Times Square when they declared
yeah,
World War II over. So I guess that's kind of what he's trying to echo.
all right,
But yeah, I guess but I'm sure a few weeks later they're like, yeah, my
yeah.
house is still in rubble. I'm still
Still
using
got no
food
food.
stamps. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I think that probably wore off quickly, but
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the, I, I guess well, so when we do these documentaries, a lot of times we don't get to see the artists. It's usually people third parties are telling the story. This documentary actually made me feel a lot more like the Beastie Boys documentary because it was told from the the band was still around to kind of tell some of the story. And it was interesting. That was kind of cool because they are legendary. So
yeah, honestly, I I just assumed that they were down to two or something.
yeah,
But you have like it sucks that they had some clips of Bonham
yeah,
uh on a rare interview. Apparently, he didn't like doing interviews, but at least they have a clip of him talking about certain things, and they put it in there pretty nicely to kind of go along with the story. But you have
yeah,
Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones is the bassist. Like, right? I feel like the bassist is usually the most overlooked person in the band. But I like the
yeah,
way he described, working specifically with um, John Bonham, Bonham, right? And how that rhythm section kind of how he approached because he's just like idolized. He like talks so well about John Bonham and how he just worked in between what he was doing, right, to enhance the
yeah,
sound. So yeah, man,
yeah.
there was a lot of that kind of talk and like talking about Jimmy Page's guitar and Robert Plant. I feel like they all it was a great match because everyone was so complimentary of each other.
And this is a rare occasion when like a band like this, they all get along. They all liked each other. They liked
Well,
each other's music.
mostly Robert Plant didn't get along with was it John
Well, no
who
one
was
liked
John Paul
Robert Plant.
Jones's wife was like, don't work with him. I'm like, God,
Yeah,
jeez.
I
And
could
that's
kind
one
of
thing
understand that.
they don't go into is like how much trouble he did get into. Right? They showed some clips of him
Yeah,
like marching to legalize weed, like, but they don't show him getting arrested or smoking
yeah,
too much weed. In fact, they don't talk about drugs that much at all in this. There are
yeah,
some things like right, we
yeah.
talked about this with like several documentaries how we feel like things are left out.
On purpose.
Yeah, that
On purpose.
and there's more of that that I'll
Yeah,
get to later.
yeah. This definitely felt like that as well. I mean, even though like there's some pieces of it like there's some pieces of this documentary I think I'm really happy to have seen. Like we talk about when the when the artist is still around, you're not getting the full story most likely.
Yeah. What I will say is there's a huge focus on the music in this, right? So they don't talk about, they don't really get into their personal lives. Well, he was married and his wife didn't like
Right.
me, and that's why they didn't work together for so long, right? Like at least it's just a kind of a mention to briefly like explain situations, but they don't
Yeah.
talk about like, yeah, I now I'm getting married, and I tried to do all this
Yeah.
stuff, and like Robert Plant talks about, I was getting married, I tried to get everything done in one day, and then like play this gig, right? It's just very quickly. So
Yeah.
the fact that they leave out drug use and like, the term is sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and we didn't get much of the other two, right? So, uh,
And they mentioned it very quickly, like
yeah,
very quickly. There's a drug, women and drugs, and that was
yeah,
all you heard. I'm like,
yeah. So there is a focus on the music, and it's a 2 hour film, and there's a lot of music in this.
yeah, and that's part of the that was part of my thing that I liked most about it, which was it it covered a lot of music, some of it very quickly, some of it as just background, but then what, like 4 or 5 songs were almost complete songs,
Yeah,
like complete performances.
we
I was like, wow,
we've complained about that in the past where there isn't enough of that. This might be the opposite. I think
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah,
too much of it. And I think that's something Bob, so I sent you that blog post by Bob Lefsetz. He's like a the tagline I'm looking at right now is first in music analysis. So I'm on his mailing list and I get his stuff all the time, and I think I had mentioned Becoming Led Zeppelin to you a few weeks ago, and this kind of made me like, oh, we should
right,
we should do this now. And he talks about
yeah,
maybe drag a few too many songs played to completion, and dragged out a little bit too much. And because this is like a jam band, they're jamming on
yeah,
stage.
yeah, 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 and I mean, there's so much music. I remember because I first of all, I had a hard time finding somewhere that had a complete list of all the songs that were it was in the actual movie. So I ended up every time a song came on, I kept hitting Shazam. So I think I stopped at 65 songs.
Oh, I didn't write down that much. I only wrote
Yeah,
down 15 songs. I wasn't even gonna try. I wasn't gonna fight that battle, dude. I wasn't gonna do it. I didn't
yeah,
even look. And for documentaries, I don't even look for the track list. I'm like, well, yeah, I can just Shazam it.
yeah,
So I just put in some key moments. Like one thing I really enjoy about these documentaries is seeing and hearing these different bands like influences, like who they listen to. And so you get that
yeah.
early on with like this Johnny Burnett trio, the train
There was
kept
some interesting.
rolling,
Yeah,
Bonnie Donegan, Jack O'Diamonds. They put Little Richard in there, Long Tall Sally. You get
yeah,
James Brown later on. So yeah, so I mean, it was really cool to see all those. Like I was kind of surprised with the Little Richard part, but I guess that's rock and roll too. So. But they don't have pianos in their band, so I was confused.
yeah. I was like, okay, well, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they carried that inspiration to, in their own work since there's no piano.
Well, one of them, I think the bassist, John Paul Jones, said he played organ at his church,
Right.
that church, right? Um,
Yeah.
but I don't recall. I'm sure there's keys. I'm sure there's plenty of organ on Led Zeppelin, so I'm sure
Yeah.
it played into it.
There was a, well, I mean, he also said something about like how you could use just watch my left hand, like
Mhm.
to kind of learn the bass lines for different,
Yeah, because his dad and
songs.
and
So
and his mom were
there's
both
that.
in showbiz as well. So yeah, he had
Yeah.
those roots. I'll tell you one thing, dude. I don't even have footage from my first like guitar recital. How do these fuckers from 1957 have
Yeah.
that shit?
Yeah. There was a bunch of footage. I was just like, how did they even think? Like, how did they find half this stuff? was it like fan submitted stuff, or, you know?
I had no idea.
And it was I mean, that's the 60s. It wasn't like now where we got cell phones you can just pull out and,
Right. That person brought
record it
out
on the fly.
a studio grade camera to film that shit, or one of
Yeah.
those winding ones, the crank
Yeah,
ones.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, so I did mention, they don't get into drugs that much, but uh, and I don't know if this was the best way to describe Jimmy Page's love of music,
Mm.
but you get a hint of their maybe possibly their drug use. Is he says the syringe was in the arm forever. That's not about drugs. That's about his like
Mm.
first playing music
Yeah.
and then like getting the
Yeah.
itch
I
for it.
bet it wasn't about drugs.
But yeah, it was and it wasn't.
Yeah, this was so we did a podcast a while back called Almost Famous, and as I was watching this I'm like, man, you could drop those characters into this movie, just like into this, like right now, like as a throwback, oh yeah, remember when we used to do this and because essentially that movie was inspired by Led Zeppelin and the Allman Brothers. So um and it just this documentary made me appreciate that film a little bit more, as far as the like I was going to ask you this, but since you're a musician, um how, like like what it really told me was the struggle of trying to keep a band together, trying to find the right combination too, you know what I mean, like trying to find the right combination, because they went through I mean, they each went through so many iterations, and it was weird, like, you know
Yeah, well, I mean,
I liked hearing that piece.
just like Jimmy Page and even like John Paul Jones remind me a lot of Luther Vandross with like the people they played with and all the different projects they were
Yeah.
working on before Luther Vandross started doing his own stuff, right? And Jimmy Page talks
Yep.
about working with David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, the Who. John Paul was arranging music for film. He to serve with love. Like, damn,
Yeah. I
right?
That was all my what the fuck moments were, like a lot of them were that.
Well, I'll throw in like our not really recurring segment. Wait, what? Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones played on Goldfinger with Shirley Bassey.
I know. I said that. I was like, wait, what? He was on. They were on Goldfinger. They also did the John Paul Jones arranged and played bass on "To Serve with Love."
Yeah,
I
dude,
was like, wait, what?
dude. And even John Paul Jones was like, his wife was trying to talk him into like calling Robert Plant, and he was like, no, I have this to do, I've got this to do, I'm too busy. Like he had to be convinced to call him, and
Right.
yeah. So to your point, yeah, it's hard enough just finding those right pieces, but like these pieces also have their own lives.
Right.
People talking in their ears, like, while John Paul's John Paul, right? Yeah, his wife is telling him to call Robert Plant. I guess it's Jimmy Page's wife is telling him not to work with him, right? So
Yeah.
there's all these different factors that play in. Like, yeah, to your point, right now, my first guitarist is like moved to the boondocks of Jersey, has two kids, bought a house, doesn't really play anymore. Second bassist is now in the boondocks, has two kids, only kind of plays in Jersey. My first drummer is down in Jamaica, right? So yeah, it is not easy, and these guys are trying
And
to do
it,
it full time, right?
and the Yardbirds, if you think about it, was just like I again, this is another one of my what the fuck moments. I never knew that Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck,
Hmm.
and Eric Clapton were once in the Yardbirds. That blew my mind. It's like the first big three.
Was it Eric Clapton in there?
I was like, what? Yeah,
I
he
know they
was in
talk
there.
about Eric Clapton. Oh, there he is. So who was playing lead guitar between him and
I
Jeff
was like,
Beck?
I think they kind of switched, like one would come and one left or something like that. So I'm just like were guitarists just falling out of the fucking sky? great guitars. I mean, just crazy.
I mean, I'll tell you what. I mean, our friend of the podcast and co-host on 007 podcast,
Yes,
JT
sir.
Curtis. He's a ridiculous guitarist. I don't know if you've ever seen him live.
Yeah.
He's absurd.
Yeah.
And then my current guitarist, Mike Bennett, he's amazing. Um,
Yeah.
they're actually switching positions on my next show. JT is gonna play guitar and Mike's gonna play bass, so it'll be fun. But there's a lot of talent out there, man. It's absurd, and with like the ease of learning these things now, like just flipping on YouTube and like teaching yourself how to play, it's probably even more
True.
oversaturated. But yeah,
True.
the fact that they found each other like or all in the same like basic area
Same
is
circle.
yeah. Who
Yeah.
did we do that with as
Is
well?
this
It was also yeah, piece by piece with
piece by
Pharrell. There was
piece?
a in that town in what South Carolina. There
Yeah.
was a bunch of
And then
fucking people
Ray,
all together like in the same town. It's crazy.
Ray was like that. Elvis was like that. So, man, I mean, just, I mean, I feel like that is when you get to like a certain level of music that not even a certain level. I think that just happens throughout like your like natural evolution of the of music as you kind of grow and whatever. You just you come across these great people all like you don't know you're great, but at the moment in time, 10 years later, this person is winning Grammys and you're writing for commercials or whatever, so
Well, also
it's our music universe coming.
let's just preface all this by saying, greatness is not measured by awards or money. Um, because if you go and
Right.
watch a JT show, whether he's doing his original stuff, he does Pink Floyd cover band, he does a not Led Zeppelin, uh, Fleetwood Mac cover band. The musicians on
Yep.
stage with him are all
They're super good.
absurd. They have
Yeah.
one. His bassist will play keys, and then I've seen her play flute. He's got a keyboardist that plays guitar and has an amazing voice. He's got a saxophonist that plays multiple instruments. It's crazy, right? So,
Mm.
um, just knowing those people, I already work with his drummer. His keyboardist is already working on he played on Inferno, and he's
Yep.
working on my reggae stuff too. So yeah, just in knowing these people and being in those circles and like going out and listening to music and going out and playing gigs, you're gonna make these connections.
Yeah.
I almost wish I didn't live in New York though, because it's just so big.
Why?
Because like you can't be at every show every night and meet all these people. Especially being like a singer-songwriter who doesn't really do covers or is not a session musician. Session musicians will that's their networking.
Yeah. Yeah. They do a lot of that. It's like comedy. It's like comedians at comedy clubs, and man, you just you like because you're out kind of studying the craft. You meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
So that's why I say, New York is such a big city and so many people and so many shows every single night, every day of the week. If I was in Pharrell's hometown, or if I was in, well, I can't remember the name of the town these guys grew up with, they're smaller places. You might bump
yeah.
into these people a little more often and have better networking possibilities. So that's why I say that.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Um, they do mention we consider this rock, but they do mention a mix of blues with psychedelia. So keeping that in mind, I just want to keep that in mind as we talk about their music. Blues, psychedelia, which is like
Yeah.
pretty much rock, and rock came from blues. But anyway, um,
Yeah.
and you kind of hear that in these performances, like the violin bow on the guitar. That's pretty psychedelic. Not sure I love that.
But yeah, that shit blew my mind. Some of it was a little hard for me to listen to, but
Yeah,
I like the innovation of
yeah. And by the way, I've seen JT do that at a Pink Floyd show.
it. Oh,
Yeah,
word.
he's broken out the bow. But I do think
Even the places they played, like the Texas International Pop Festival that they played at, Pop Festival, like pop must has undergone a reinvention. Like the like even now people have a hard time fitting artists into different things. But Janis Joplin, Santana, BB King, and Led Zeppelin, pop.
mm, yeah, it's of course, yeah, over time that's gonna change. Um, Obviously, that comes from popular music, which to me is different
Yeah,
from actual like pop. To me, now pop is a genre. It's not. It's not a
yeah,
description.
it's a genre, right?
But at the time, let's see, like 1960s, rock was the
Right.
popular format. So I guess you would
Yeah,
call that pop
yeah,
music. Um, in the 90s, you might even call hip hop pop, right? I don't,
yeah, maybe.
in the 90s, it was that big. Um, now, like I think of pop and I think of Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, right?
Yeah,
There's a way they put this music together.
it's a little bit more bouncy too.
Bouncy,
It's like in,
catchy,
yeah,
repetitive.
yeah, yeah.
Led Zeppelin is not repetitive. I mean, you got Whole Lot of Love where they
No,
sing Whole Lot of Love a few times, but like they're almost a sorry, what is it? Pink Floyd and they're almost prog rock.
yeah, yeah. I could actually, to be honest, if someone told me, tried to convince me they were a jazz group, I would say okay, because of how they know to, they don't it, how different it is, and you could. So I was listening to, I think it was not Santana, it was Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is kind of a blues rock band with a lot of harmonica, but a lot of guitar, similar to like what Led Zeppelin does. But in the 70s, 80s, Taj Mahal was playing at some of the best and top jazz concerts and jazz clubs, and so they started being considered more jazz than rock. I can't. I could see somebody thinking, rock jazz or something like
I
that.
think Taj Mahal is playing at Summer Stage this summer. But
Oh, really?
yeah, but like to your point, like if you look at the bands that they opened up with, like Johnny Burnett Trio, Lonnie Donegan, I think both of those bands had standing basses. So jazz,
Yep.
if not jazz itself, jazz related.
Jazz, adjacent.
Yeah. So yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think the way that John Bonham plays the drums, I can see a jazz influence there. Like
Yep.
like all these like I don't know vibrant rhythms.
Yep.
Uh, that
Yep.
being said, we need to talk about how many more times. I think that's one of the first songs. It's the first clip of them playing a show together.
Oh, right.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Everything is insane. Like Plant's vocals, Page's guitar solo, Jones's bass runs. I don't know if you really caught
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Bonham is just insane. Like what I just had described,
Yeah.
in his head, and he's like looks
Yeah.
like he's mumbling to himself the whole time. That blew me away. The
Yeah.
audience looks
It's
like they
there's a
don't know
reason why
what just happened.
there's a reason why when you talk about some of the best musicians on earth ever, that most likely these dudes are at the top, like near the top of those lists for their respective instruments. I mean, uh, some of the stuff like Jimmy Page was doing, I was just like, I sat there, I was like, yeah, okay, I see why people have him in the conversation for one of the best guitarists ever to play.
I can also see why like older folks in that day would probably like you see some clips of be like kids and even parents covering their ears. Like know your audience.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
I don't think they were playing in the right venues for their music, first of all, but I can see like, it is
Yeah,
loud. It is like it is kind of jazzy in the sense that like Jimmy Page is just like not sticking with the melody. He's like going this way for about
Yeah.
10 minutes and then he brings it back. It's just like jazz, right? So um I can see how people might get like put off by it, but I mean it's
Reminded me
definitely
of Back
amazing.
to the Future, of the
Y-
Marty McFly Back to the Future moment when
Yeah.
he's playing and they all kind of look at him like, what the
But your
hell?
kids are gonna love it. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I had a question. Were you able to identify the acoustic song that Paige is playing? It kind of talks about like it's tuned like a sitar.
No, it wouldn't come back with
Yeah,
anything.
me neither. I mean that was really nice, and
It was really good. Yeah.
wish I could maybe there's a live version. Maybe I'll be able to Google it soon. Someone will figure it out and post it somewhere.
That was the one thing about this. What I liked about the fact that I was able to find a lot of this stuff, and they do have a lot of their live performances recorded and available on Spotify, which I thought was like normally that doesn't happen. You don't, if you go to search it, you won't be able to find it. So, um, so for those people who have never listened to Led Zeppelin, um, I would definitely check them out on Spotify if you can, or and you know, we don't I don't normally recommend a documentary before we're finished, but if you like rock music or at least, you know, music,
Or it's good,
this is
amazing
this was
musicianship
yeah, this was definitely one of the better like documentaries that focused around the music.
and the production. I love the insight into
Yeah,
the production process because Jimmy Page was heavily involved in that. We don't
I knew you were gonna love that.
we don't get a lot on we don't get a lot on the writing. There's a little bit of it in there.
Yeah, except for him showing that, you know, like the notebooks and
Yeah.
shit. Yeah,
But like we got a lot of that in Piece by Piece. But like say for
yeah,
like the Amy documentary, we don't really get that. It's we get a lot of
yeah,
writing in the Amy one, and maybe they just focus it on. But like the production for Amy Winehouse's stuff is amazing. So I would
yeah.
actually love to be like sit in that room, like get a view of that room with all the different musicians and adding their parts to the song, right? So
It's kind of like we should have part Amy Winehouse, part
piece by piece.
what was piece by piece, part Quincy Jones
Well, Quincy
with his
was yeah. Well,
and then
that's a lot of arrangement. And they kind of talk about that here with Jimmy Page and John Paul
yeah,
Jones. So we do get a little bit of that, but
yeah,
it's really like I said, focused on the music, right? Not their lives, not their
yeah,
personal lives. It's which I don't mind, which I mean I enjoyed.
yeah. This was like I said, this felt like everything kind of what the Beastie Boys were trying to achieve with them doing that without this live audience and the whole rigmarole behind it.
Yeah, that was yeah. To me, that was we talked about it. That was interesting. I'd never seen a
Yeah.
documentary presented that way before, but I don't know if it was necessary.
Yeah, I would have rather than do what this one does, with them sit down and kind of like have
Look, the
this.
traditional
Yeah,
documentary. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess they must have had scripts they were working off of in that one, but who knows?
yeah. I did like one of the things I did like about this too is I'm on, you know, I like seeing all these page clippings and newspaper
And
clippings and
tickets and the
stuff
tickets that they
because I
put up
want
there.
this. Yeah, to kind of get a layout of what the music scene was around, like all the other indie bands and shit like that, to see what was playing. And it was there were some like well known bands playing with them and around them at that time, which was kind of cool
Yeah.
to see.
Well, I saw on one of the clippings there the tickets. Alice Cooper was was on the bill with them.
Yeah,
I didn't catch all of actually like John Lee Hooker was
John Lee
their
Hooker,
first show
the
as Led
Psychedelic
Zeppelin.
Furs.
John Lee Hooker was on the bill with them.
Yeah. I mean, it was, you know, they were not super big, what I would call, but like if you know music, you recognize a few of them. So,
Yeah. By the way, because I
um,
don't know,
which is
did I
cool.
write this down?
What struck me as weird. Hmm.
I was just thinking. I did write this down, did I? Oh no, I did. just before, because I added these to my Spotify playlist. There's a few songs: "Shaking All Over" by Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, "Keep It to Yourself,"
I love that song.
"Keep It to Yourself," Sonny Boy Williamson. Um,
That was okay
and the
too.
one they opened with, I don't think I'd heard before, "Good Times, Bad Times," or I don't remember it, by Led
Mm.
Zeppelin also. But those are like,
I don't think I've heard that one either.
yeah. So I think those are some of the influences that we mentioned before.
The "Shaken All Over" by Johnny Kidd and the Pirates actually was really good. It was. I felt like it was a little ahead of its time. It felt like more like an '80s rock song, like in the vein of like Tears for Fears or the Thompson Twins. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. You know, there were like a couple of beer groups like that. I was like, okay, that's some interesting music being played back then.
It didn't strike me as that when I first heard it. I just liked it, but I'm gonna listen to it again, and see if I'm getting what you're talking about with the '80s rock.
Mm. It felt like either Tears for Fears or maybe even some Elvis Costello, like early Elvis.
I mean, I don't listen to Elvis, but either of them. Uh,
Come on, man.
um, actually, I had a moment that made me go, "Wow!" when
Mm.
John Paul says when they're changing from Yardbirds. He says it was a terrible that Led Zeppelin is a terrible name, but I couldn't come up with anything better, so Led Zeppelin we were. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah, because I kept wondering like how they changed the name, and I was just like, wow, that's so anticlimactic. It's like
Yes,
it's just a name, whatever.
you know what's funny? Yeah, like they don't really explain the back if there's any backstory to it. Like for example, like my first band, 11th Ward, my friend Kira came up with that, but because I don't know if she had done some research or she knew that 11th Ward was an area. It's not just a New Orleans thing. It was an area or a ward in New York City, and it was close to where I grew up. So
Mm,
there was a personal connection to that name that made sense, and it's a nice story. And like for a long time on like my website and my music cards, there was a map of that on it on them, right? So if it's just like someone pulled Led Zeppelin out of their ass, I'm like, okay, well, that's not interesting.
well, Led Zeppelin. Okay, cool. All right, yeah. Don't know where it came from, but all right. Yeah, like like I don't even know why they changed from the Yardbirds. Like
Maybe because there weren't any other
really,
original
like
band members there anymore. I don't know. And
yeah,
the sound was
maybe,
completely different. Once they
maybe,
went from Yardbirds, like, and then pulled in the new guys
yeah,
as we know them as Led Zeppelin, it was a completely different sound.
yeah, yeah. That's true. I just assumed when everybody started leaving the yard. But like when he said that they were going, he decided at that moment he was going to start his own band. I just assumed he was just going to start a new band with a new name. I didn't think he was going to just start a new band and call it the Yardbirds.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So
they figured it out eventually. I will say,
yeah.
as far as criticism of this film goes, I didn't like
Mm,
the usage of footage that clearly didn't match what they were playing. Like they had live performances, but then they had some like music playing, and sometimes full songs, and it was just
right.
like a random montage of performances. That was kind of like took me out
Yeah.
of it. I was like, it's like when you have you're watching a dubbed movie.
Oh, but they probably didn't. I assume some. It feels like some of this footage was personal footage from what band members as well. So maybe they just didn't have because some of that footage, like there was that one clip where he's where was it Jimmy Page? I think he's playing a guitar, the acoustic guitar, and he's just like strumming, but they and then they show you like this footage is damaged or
Yeah,
some
yeah.
shit
But
like
that
that.
that looked what
So it's possible that they just
yeah, but that was actually like what was playing was what he was playing on the guitar. So like that was fine. It was
yeah,
just you
yeah,
could see it
yeah,
was
yeah,
damage from the distortion on the screen. And I also feel like
probably years
I
of
saw
yeah.
reused clips as well. which was also
Um,
anyway. Just leaving that out there,
mm,
and I'll lead that into my what the fuck, my big what the fuck moment. The Rolling Stone review,
which is
dude. I wrote down every line that they showed on screen. Self-indulgent and restrictedness are fully in evidence on Led Zeppelin's debut album. Jimmy
yeah,
Page is a very limited producer and a writer of weak, unimaginative songs. Prissy Robert Plant's howled vocals are strained and unconvincing. That doesn't hold up. John Bonham smashes his cymbals on every beat. The song is very dull, very redundant.
yeah. Wonder how.
He's ripped everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Well, uh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's Rolling Stones, first of all.
They don't always get bad
They've been
reviews.
known to be wrong.
Well,
No, but they've been known to be really wrong about certain things. Like they're the Stephen A. Smith of music, basically. Sometimes they're right, but a lot of times it's just a bunch of bullshit.
yeah, I was actually watching a clip of The Daily Show today with Stephen A on it, and and John, my God, what's his last name? John? Who's the host of The Daily
On
Show?
who? John
Stewart.
Stewart?
Mentions his reaction when the Knicks traded for Brunson, and I guess Stephen A
Hmm.
said he's not the guy.
Oh yeah, he famously said that.
Anyway, I digress. He just brought up Stephen A. And so we do get into the songwriting a little bit at the ramble on section of the film, which I dig. I actually looked at the lyrics. I really love them, but there's one group of lyrics I always noticed. I don't know if you can guess what they are. They talk about
No,
they put them up on screen.
doubt it.
"'Twas in the darkest depths of Mordor I met a girl so fair, but Gollum and the evil one crept up and slipped away with her."
What are you reading? Lord of the
Yeah,
Rings?
man, that's awesome.
That's interesting.
But ramble on, like I mentioned, like prog rock. That song is kind of prog rock, right? It's very kind of slow
Yeah,
during the
that's
verses, and then
yeah.
ramble on has this like kind of hard hits. And I think there's a completely different bridge. So anyway,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the second half of this film was, I felt like I was watching a concert film at that point, which is good. And that's not a bad criticizing it, but it was very much like I was watching a concert film. I actually wish there was something like this for Prince, where we saw whole performances of his.
I mean, Purple Rain has a lot of full performances, but
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
semi-fictional film.
Yeah.
I mean, film a performance movie. I guess. I mean, a lot of the allure of Led Zeppelin are their live performances, so I think they probably focused on that. Like the same thing as like
Yeah.
Pink Floyd.
Well, they made it very clear that they didn't want to be a singles group that just made singles. I think when you make an album, and especially in that time and era, you're you're you you're making that music so you can play it in live performances.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I mean, they seem very focused on the live stuff.
which I completely understand.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, and they were right, right? They spent a year doing that, and it ended up blowing up blowing up their popularity. They were doing everything nobody else was doing. What which was funny when they mentioned that they worked with almost everybody except for the Beatles, which I was like, yeah, why? Well, I kind of understand it because I was thinking about this early in the movie, but kind of got the answers later in the movie, which is this was kind of a British rock band, but they didn't really play it in their hometown. I mean, they played there probably 40% of the time versus what they were doing in
Well,
the
that was
US.
my So hold up. They pretty much toured the US like twice and we're still worried about resonating
Yeah.
with British fans. I think that's like crazy.
Yeah. I was like, that's
But you
odd,
you
but I get
you
it.
do hear about like, American artists like making it big in other countries and still being relatively
Yeah.
unknown here. But I just felt that at that time, if you started out
Well,
big in your own country. Like I feel like that
right.
that thing of like being big somewhere else is a more recent progression.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was
Yeah.
strange.
I mean, because the Beatles did it in their home turf first, and then came to
Yeah, I mean they did
U.S.
spend some time in Germany, uh,
Right.
but yeah, they were big in the British flavor. That's what the British invasion, like they were big enough to come over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've mentioned this on previous documentaries, but I think what they also did well in this film is show the progress of the band,
Yeah.
especially with like
I
the
like that.
small, unenthusiastic crowds, and then to the huge, insane one, like crazy fans.
Yep.
Whereas like, right, what film was it? Was it Amy, where she was all of a sudden just performing like these huge shows, like packed
Yeah.
houses?
I think so.
I was like, you need to give me some kind of like step, step ladder kind of thing. Like, let me see what
Yeah.
happened because that just makes me feel bad if she just blew up like that. And I've been working for like 15 years as a musician. So this showed the
Yeah.
grind. This definitely showed the grind, and
I was
Jimmy
thinking,
Page
what?
definitely talks about it a lot.
Yeah. I like. I also liked that they created their album before they came over, and they owned their own music
Yeah,
before signing with Atlantic, which I thought was super smart.
yeah.
Like they're so ahead of their time on
Well,
that.
I'm trying to figure. So Ray Charles was preceded them, right? So
Yeah, that would have been because he worked with Wexler too.
so I think they might have learned from him because remember he didn't
Maybe.
he didn't like, produce all the music beforehand, but he definitely negotiated owning his own masters. So I think they probably
Yeah,
took a note from that.
yeah. And they had a good manager. The guy seemingly really cared about
We
the
don't hear from
band,
him at all,
took
right?
care of them.
I asked him about maybe he's dead. Peter Grant. But
Yeah,
there's no like interview footage with him either.
yeah.
Peter Grant. I mean,
No,
oh,
it
he was a
doesn't
big
sound.
guy.
It doesn't
Oh, he
seem
died
like
in
it.
'95. He was only 60. So yeah, I mean, I guess why would you want to talk to the manager? I suppose, but I feel like we heard from like, what did we do? Was it Hard Day's Night or something?
Yeah, we definitely heard from their
Yeah. So
manager. There are two managers because they had the one. They had one first, and then they had a second one
right.
later on.
Um, but anyway, I did want to like talk about the stuff that they didn't talk about. The stuff we said was missing, which is like
Which
sex,
is
drugs, and rock and roll. Like I haven't gone and done research about this. I just assume with bands, especially of that era,
yeah,
that there was a lot of drugs and a lot of groupies. And you talk about being on the road away from their families, but they don't talk about what happened on the road, right? I'm going to assume stuff happened, right? Uh, but the other thing that they don't
yeah,
really talk about is there's a lot of talk about like Led Zeppelin's usurpation of American blues music. That they mention they're being
yeah,
influenced by them, and they mention like covering right when they went to I think when they started the first jam session together. I think they were jamming on a blues track. But like I think they played one
yep.
song in this. If I let me see if I remember.
Oh,
Oh, I think it's "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You." I think yeah, that's the cover they do. I think so.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. I
"I
think
Can't Quit
so.
You, Baby." I have it right here. So
Oh,
that's the
okay.
one that played, and they actually talk about. But there's 8 other songs that they have covered on their albums. Uh, "Dazed and Confused," actually, they talked about
Hmm.
that one as well, but I don't think they played it.
Oh, Days
So,
Confused. Yeah, they played it.
okay.
They definitely
So,
played it. Mhm.
there has been, I've talked to people who have like mentioned that and weren't too happy about it. Because that "I Can't Quit You, Baby" is Willie Dixon's song first recorded by Otis Rush, 1956.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought we need
Yeah.
to talk about stuff like that that wasn't covered in the film.
Yeah. I mean, I think you even see it in places that they've been booked. Like if you see a lot of like when they played at the Newport Jazz Festival, when they played at the Texas International, a lot of the places that they played in the big billings, if you notice, there were like at least two or three blues or jazz blues artists
Hmm.
on the bill.
Yeah.
And you can't, I'm sorry, but that doesn't happen without, like, it's not just coincidence, I don't believe.
So mentioned it. That being said, I like a lot of Led Zeppelin stuff. I found some new stuff to add to my playlist. So, but lucky for you, Darren, I don't have a pop quiz for you.
Oh boy. Oh, but I have one for
Well, thanks for
you.
listening, everybody. It's been a great podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, whatever. All right. So,
Oh,
pop
you're serious?
quiz,
Oh my!
buddy boy. There was a newspaper that had an article entitled New Singles, featuring Robert Plant's new song, Our Song. It also featured a write up for another rather famous artist. Who was it, and what was the song they were reviewing? Do do do.
There was way too much other stuff for me to pay attention to than this
Yeah,
insignificant
oh yeah.
question. It was, that being said, it was Elton John, Tiny Dancer.
Oh, I'm sorry, Elton John. It was actually a write up for a song called Traveling Man by Stevie Wonder.
That's what I said.
Stevie Wonder. But I wrote down, this is what they wrote about the song. It said this song could be a top 50, but I don't think it could be a top 10 song. Unfortunately, they were correct. He didn't make the top 10 with that
He made
song.
the top 10 with
It was okay.
hundreds of others.
The song's okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure Stevie Wonder's crying, losing sleep over this.
And usually I have a bunch of trivia. There's not a lot on IMDb because it's a recent film, but also like documentaries are essentially trivia. So
Yeah, they're
yeah,
their
we've
own
kind of
trivia.
already talked about all that stuff, but maybe I don't know some other songs we didn't mention here. I mean, there's so much. Um,
Yeah,
so the Sonny Boy Williamson song I saved is "Keep It to Yourself," which is pretty dope.
yeah, that was cool. I like the song by Donovan that Jimmy Page was on, Sunshine Superman.
Oh, I didn't even write that down. Eh, yeah. No, the one we mentioned earlier,
Like always
Shaken
been
All
one.
Over by Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. It's been covered. I was looking it
Yeah,
up on, because I added it
yeah.
to my Spotify. It's been covered by Van Morrison, The Who, Tom Petty, The Smithereens, Billy Idol, and the Yardbirds.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
really? Huh.
Um,
Okay, I'll have to listen to some of those versions.
I gotta sit with the original first. It was somebody told my girl by Carter Lewis and the Southerners that Jimmy Page played on, and he said he figured out his
Yep,
solo the second run through. What an asshole.
I know.
And of course, there's just a ton of Led Zeppelin. We should probably mention them. I thought it was actually they did have a couple of songs that were like relevant to the scene. So like there's one called "You Better Run," and that's when Robert Plant decides not to go into accounting and he like leaves home, so he runs away from home. Um,
Yeah,
Your Time Is Gonna Come when they're pitching Atlantic Records. That was another one.
yeah.
But then, man, Baby, I'm Gonna Leave You, Jennings Farm Blues, How Many More Times, Whole Lot of Love, What Is and What Should Never Be, Moby Dick, Ramble On, Heartbreaker. We get to the bigger ones. And we mentioned I Can't Quit You, Baby. All Led Zeppelin. There's plenty more that I have not mentioned. If
The
the
Lemon
Lemon song.
song.
If anybody knows the acoustic song that Jimmy Page is playing solo with the fucked up footage, please let me know because I want to find it and add it to my collective.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually. I was like, damn, this dude's. Man.
Yeah. Do you have any other quotes or what the fuck moments that stuck with you?
No, I mean, there's, like you said, there wasn't a lot of, oh, the only, so there's a scene in the movie where I think they're playing, it's their second time they're playing in the US. And it's kind of like black and white footage and a bunch of like they're playing. It's the scene where it's the concert that blew them up, where the manager is like, hey, if things don't go right on this, you're done, kind of
Yeah,
a
you're
thing.
done. Yeah.
If you watch in the if you watch in the crowd, there's a whole bunch of white people dancing, and then they kind of pan, and there's one black dude with the biggest fro I've ever seen, and he's dancing like a white dude, and I'm just like, dude, come on. The one black guy is in this film, and you got to represent, man. You can't be dancing like. I was like, what is going on
uh,
here?
I definitely missed that.
Yeah, that was. I was like, oh, let me write that one down. And also, the concert that they played at the university where the people were putting their hands over their ears. Did you see that they had little kids at the show? I was like, why are little kids at now? It's not like adult material, but I'm like, seriously, you thought this was the place to bring like 6 year old, 7 year old
Well, that's
kid?
what I'm saying. Like, it seemed like
Like you said,
it
no,
was some kind of review as opposed to like a rock show.
yeah,
And maybe, I mean, I'm sure there's other
yeah,
bands that were more kid friendly, like just eh, anyway. Yeah, again, their
yeah,
manager fucked
yeah,
up on that one, I think.
yeah. That was so odd. I was like, you know, I give him a lot of props for bouncing back from something like that because shows like that could kill your career. You know, the word gets out and that's it. People are like, nah, we're good. Good for them.
I had a couple quotes that I enjoyed. One was from Robert Plant when in early on in the film, he's like, "Not many people liked us, but we liked us," which
Yeah,
you
I
you
like
got
that
you yeah
too.
you have to like your own. I mean that could backfire if you're not good, but
Yeah,
luckily
yeah,
they were. And then I liked John
yeah.
Paul Jones's description of Robert Plant. He said, "I was expecting a soul singer, and instead there was this screaming maniac." He compliments him after that, but I thought that line was hilarious.
Mm. Well, he was so different than his early in his career.
Dude, like Robert Plant's voice is so well. I guess it sounds so impossible. It's so powerful, and like the range is insane. Like I can't like, and of course, like
Yeah,
I don't have that range. So I think of doing that, and then I feel like my esophagus would pop out of my fucking mouth because I would just break. So it's crazy.
yeah. I think he has that. I think Axl Rose has
Mm,
that in common with him, kind of a little bit. They can get that higher range of those really crazy pitches. It's like, you kidding
yeah.
me?
Anyway, are we ready for our final questions?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, by the way, this was how long? This was 2 hours and I think 10
202.
minutes or something like that. 202. So it was like the longest film we've done in I don't know how long. So,
Well, again, we talked about it like
um,
the some of those performances were not necessary to show the full thing. So
yeah,
that we
yeah,
could have probably cut out at least 10 minutes, 10, 15.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, my, are we doing favorite songs and
Oh,
that thing?
could Tom
Favorite
Hanks
song.
be in this film and in what role?
Oh, oh, that one?
No,
Yeah, right. What's it
no.
going to be?
I had a question, which is recently I've been
Mm-hmm.
to a Led Zeppelin cover show with all women called Les Zeppelin, and our friend
Yeah,
JT does a lot of Pink Floyd cover shows. So my question to you
yeah.
is Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd?
The
Yes.
bands? That's a hard question. I feel like that's an almost an impossible task. But I grew up with Pink Floyd, so I'm going to say Pink Floyd.
I went with Pink Floyd. I've heard a lot more Pink Floyd recently because of JT. And I can't really tell you why.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just a little less harsh to the ear, if that's the way to describe it. Maybe
Right.
they're just a little bit less.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go Pink Floyd. I have a harder question for you though. Led
Hmm.
Zeppelin's best song. Actually, I'm gonna Google that while you think.
Oh,
See what the internet says.
I think uh,
Wow, I forgot about one.
I think, hmm,
Dude, they didn't play a song in this. Maybe it was because there's a
which is
cutoff, right? This is like the becoming Led Zeppelin. It's not maybe perhaps their whole careers.
right, right.
Kashmir.
Oh yeah, that's right. They didn't
Well,
play
second of
Kashmir.
all, Immigrant Song. Third of all, Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff they didn't get to
Those are all
play.
post 1970. I don't know where this film stops.
Well, to answer that question, then I'll say I will say "Stay Away to Heaven," and the only reason why I'll say it is because did you know that "Stairway to Heaven" is the most played song ever?
I find that hard to believe since All I Want for Christmas. Is that not a close second?
I don't know, but it was so prevalent and so played in record stations that there was like a campaign to get people radio stations to stop playing it because people couldn't. They were like, it's
Yeah,
playing
it's
too
a
much.
long song. But actually, this is our third kind of rock-centered film, right? We did Empire Records, Wayne's World, and now we're doing this.
Yep.
But in Wayne's World, what does the sign of the record store say? Ooh, that's my pop quiz.
Oh, too late. You
I
can't
can't.
just be
We
giving up
haven't
a pop
signed off
quiz.
yet, bro.
It's you already said the end of the movie
No,
podcast. You already
this
said it.
is
You
our
said
final
it. You said it
questions, and it's a
yourself.
pop quiz. I'm sorry.
I don't. I don't accept that.
It says no
Anyway.
stairway to heaven because at the time
Oh, you talking about the sign by
at the at the music store because not just in the movie but at that time record stores actually had that sign up because every guitarist that came in and wanted to play mess or practice with a guitar or try out a guitar would use that.
yeah.
So
What's the name? What's the guitar store there in the Guitar Center? Guitar Center has that
there,
rule. Yeah.
luckily I don't know that one. Um, Man, I don't know. Kashmir. I asked the question was, I mean, maybe we should save this best Led Zeppelin song because that's subjective. But yeah, maybe we'll move on to your favorite song in the track list and the song that encompasses the film.
I don't know. I mean, my favorite song, like I said, I think is going to be that song. Um, it's not even
The Shaking All Over.
one of their songs. Yeah, Shaking All. I really like that song. I thought that was first song I added to my new playlist. My playlist. Um, but the song for the movie, I am going to say, where is it? Um, hmm, probably Whole Lot of Love. I'm going to go with that one.
I think Ramble On only because we got an explanation of the lyrics. And I do like the
Mm,
lyrics, and I like the song. It's on my playlist already. Um, I was gonna say Good Times, Bad Times because they open up with that, and like I wrote it down early because I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna go through the band's ups and downs. They didn't really go through the downs.
they went through the
So
ups,
so I
and
think
that's it.
maybe your time is gonna come. Might be my new answer.
Okay, all right.
And with that said, what do you rate this documentary?
It was one of the better ones we've done in recent past. I was, to be honest, I was pleasantly surprised with the length of some of the music that they played in it. There was some. It's not the perfect film, but it was good. It was really good, actually. Like I would watch this again just to listen to the music. So I'll give this an 8. Hey,
I thought it was great. It didn't really need the personal life stuff because of the it was really so focused on the music and the music was dope and seeing the writing, production, arranging processes, all that stuff was super interesting. So I don't know
yeah.
why there's 2 points missing. Like maybe could have used more special effects. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I recommend.
Yeah, I would recommend seeing this. Especially if you like music and you like, because if you like music, this is definitely a music
Mm-hmm.
documentary versus like a biography of sorts. Um, and if I mean, there's like other films you can watch if you really want more stuff like from them. Like famously, the one it's the song that remain the song remains the same, which I think came out in '76, which I should rewatch sometime
I think about it.
to see the difference between like that and this. So,
Well, what's on your plate?
uh, you know, Creators Lounge, which is we're making some changes, some updates, some things, bringing in some people to talk. So that should be fun. Um, and I did my first TikTok live,
Why wasn't I on it?
which actually you could be on one. Yeah, you know, I have to do another one soon. You know, if you want to come on this in the next couple days, let me know.
Oh, I'll have my.
I had like 400 people came and listened. It was
What were you talking
good.
about?
Nothing. I was running my mouth.
That sounds familiar.
I think I was whatever. When's your next show again?
July
Coming up.
11th,
Like
Sylvana getting 2 hours. So buckle up,
2 hours,
folks.
man. This like a Led
Woo!
Zeppelin doc.
Uh, so Sylvana, Friday, July 11th, 8 o'clock. Um, and then Shrine, August 15th at 8 o'clock. So looking forward to both those shows. And if you haven't listened already, go to any of your whatever streaming platform you listen to and check out Inferno. But I'm also moving forward on my reggae EP. I have a keyboardist, as I mentioned, that's going to be adding some keys to the songs.
Oh snap!
Um,
Oh snap!
we're going to be looking into maybe a horn section for one of the songs. And I have another producer who's ready to work on that. So, and hopefully this summer, hopefully, that's my hope. We'll see.
Oh, are you still planning on hopefully releasing a reggae
No, that's what I
EP
was
at
just
some
talking
point?
about.
Oh, is that what that? Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know you had found the producer already, but that's
Yeah,
good.
put a shout out on social media, and I got a bunch of responses. So we'll see how it works out. Might have to go to another producer, but we'll see.
Well, as always, if you need spoons, you know,
How, uh,
I've appeared on
I
different
might need a
albums.
steel
You
drum. Can you translate your spoonage into steel drummage?
sure? Why not? Same thing, except smaller. Anyway. All right. Well, be sure to follow Chris on Instagram at Chris Saunders music _music. And you can find me at the Darren Jenkins also on Instagram. But the more important thing is you please like and subscribe and our show and the Tracklist show on Instagram. You can find our links to listen and to find our website where you can, support us. All right, that's it. This was a good one. This was a good choice. Good job. Good
Yeah,
job.
good for one good suggestion a year.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, until next time, I'm Darren
Chris
Jenkins,
Saunders,
and this
the
was
track
the
list.
track list. Stay safe, everybody. Eat your vegetables, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.